we got a chance to talk to Laura Lynn Knight. She is a parenting educator. She has a background in education, and now she talks to media outlets all over the world about how to find that balance. So take a listen to what we talked about when it comes to managing homework. You brought up homework struggles, which is why we're talking today.
Yes.
And
yes.
I have one in third grade, one in first, and then a preschooler. So I'm not even in the depths of homework struggles, but I'm already seeing it. I'm already trying to figure out what works best for kids. And sometimes my third grader, she loves to do her homework on the bus or right when she gets home, but then I notice some stress levels. When do you think kids should be thinking about doing their homework?
And, you know, you and I are similar. So I have a first grader also, and I have a fourth grader. And it's amazing kind of how much homework we've even had, even up at this point, right? Where they are so little and you think, okay, I'm not even there yet. And at the same time, I'm still already noticing this increase of stress, or it's a little bit hard for them, or even if they like it, it's still weighing on them. And really, if we think about the school day, you know, I, as a former elementary school teacher, I mean, I remember how exhausted I was by the end of the day, because we're always learning, we're academically learning, we're socially learning, we're emotionally learning. And so our kids, although they might be having an amazing experience at school, they're really just using their brain and their bodies so much. And then finally they get home after a very long day at school, and it's kind of like, hurry up, let's get on to our homework now. And so what I say to a lot of parents is, where's the time to decompress? Where's the time in the child's schedule where they can sit down on the ground and just get out their Lego, or sit down on the ground and play, or go outside and kick the soccer ball, or just do something to kind of just let all of that go from school and then move on to homework.
And do you think this applies to teens too?
Absolutely, because I think teens, you know, their brains are developing even more. They have even more of that social and emotional going on at school. And so to come straight home and just launch into the homework routine can just be really taxing and tiring on them. And what I hear from a lot of families is they're sick of the power struggle that ensues because of the homework. So parents are saying, you know, you need to do your homework, and you need to do your homework now. And then the children are pushing back, or maybe they're not, but then they're getting whiny, and you don't want them to be whiny. And then all of a sudden, there you are, you haven't seen your child all day. It's finally an opportunity to connect with them, to spend time with them, and you're in an argument or you're in a fight. And we don't want to be that way as parents. We don't want to have that dynamic with our children. So giving them some space and time before they enter in is going to make it easier for you too. What I see is that those power struggles greatly decrease because everyone's just a little bit more grounded, if you will, like just more in their own space and has more capacity after they've had a bit of a break after school.
Right. Laura, let me ask you too, since we're in the same phase of parenting. I'm just starting all of the after school activities. This was our first year of a lot of after school sports. So I felt like the rush was, okay, wait, do a little homework now, because then you have to go here, and then we're going to eat, and then you have to finish your homework after dinner. And so it felt like we were constantly rushing, but because the evenings are so busy.
It's true. There's such a balance, and there's, you know, we do the sports and we do the music, and then you kind of add it all up, and they're at school all day, and it's kind, when is there time for homework, and when is there time for even to sit down and have dinner? And so I really suggest for families that they sit down with their children or their child, and you say, okay, this is our schedule. We have homework, we have these after school activities, you know, I know you're at school. Let's come up with a game plan. Let's find a solution for how homework is going to fit best in our family and feel best for you. Now, some children might say, I want to do it on the bus on the way home, or I want to do it the second I walk in the door. And if your child wants to do that and that works well for your family, that's wonderful. You know, use that method. But what I find is most children say, I want a bit of a break. And yes, yes, I will do, X, Y, and Z in my homework. Maybe it's my math homework, or maybe I can do my 20 minutes of reading on the way to sports. But really, I need a snack and I want to have just a little bit of playtime with you as my parent. And then, or just I want to hang out with you as my parent if they're older. And then, yes, let's go do our activity, or let's do homework as soon as we get home before we have dinner. And there's no easy way because we can't add time to the day. I wish we could. We could just kind of extend it and give those extra hours. And the last thing I'll say about after school activities is if you find your child can't get their homework done and they're melting down and it's a struggle, then it's a time to reevaluate how many after school activities you're doing, because sometimes we just can't do it all. I think that's a lesson we are learning as parents and that we get to teach our children.
Right. I know if we're exhausted, the kids are probably exhausted too.
Yes.
I want to talk about that time before bed too, because I know a lot of families, especially ones that have extracurricular activities, then the homework's getting pushed to that twilight hour where they are exhausted and now they're just starting a project. Can that be detrimental to not only the schoolwork, but just their effort that they're putting into it?
It really can be so hard on them. I mean, I love how you said those twilight hours. When my kids were little, my mom would come over and help with them, and she would call it the witching hour.
Yeah.
And we would always laugh because it was like, oh yes, this is a very, very hard time of the day for everyone, because we're just so stretched and we're so exhausted and we're tired. And are we really learning if we're doing our project in that hour, if we're racing to get things done right before bed? And what message are we teaching children when we do that? Are we teaching them to check the boxes? Is that what the intention of homework is? Is it just another box to be checked? Or, really the intention of homework is that we want to reiterate what they're learning in school. And it's actually an opportunity for us as parents to have insight into what they are doing at school, kind of gauge where they are, if they need extra support. And it can be a really special time for us to actually spend time with them. I think that's a misconception for many of us that we just need to get homework done. Yeah. Like, let's just clear that off our plate. But actually, it's a time that we get to bond and connect. So if that is a hard hour for you, then again, we have to go back and reevaluate when can homework be done? And does that mean less of an after school activity? Is that one day a week? Or can you ask your teacher for homework on Mondays and Tuesdays because the rest of the week is busy? Can they give it to you ahead of time so that your child can get it done ahead of time? Is your school flexible? So being really curious about homework can often help solve a lot of the major problems that we see.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do want to bring up too, because having your educator background. I mean, you've been in the front of the classroom, you know how kids learn, you know how involved to get. So how involved should parents be? Because even though my kids are in those early grades, I'm always kind of trying to be carefully walking that line of how much do I help? Because I want them to learn the material, but that, I don't want to do their projects for them and I don't want to do their homework for them, but they do need help sometimes. And if they're really struggling, how do you walk that balance?
It is a fine balance to walk. And some children, they come home and they really don't need any help and they don't need support. And then they can sit there and they can do their homework. And still, even though I have children that are very much like that, where they don't need a ton of scaffolding from me, I don't have to always do a lot, I still like to be there and be present because I know that that's time that we have together. And so I'll still sit with them. And when I'm sitting with them, what I love is that they'll often share little bits and pieces about their day, or they'll say, oh yeah, I'm doing this for homework. And oh, it reminded me of what we did at school. And I kind of get to connect with them and hear more about, what is happening for them. So no, I don't think parents should be doing all of their child's homework. Yes, I think it's an opportunity to still participate and be engaged. And the last thing I'll say is if you notice that you're sitting with your child and they're really struggling through their homework, then again, it's time to go back to the teacher, because homework in its intention is meant to be a review of what a child has already learned and not a brand new teaching.